Hey there guys, it's Anthony here from Cutting Edge Guitar, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the cutting edge guitar players for the fusion genre, what makes them the cutting edge guitar players, and what are the albums that I think you should check out to be listening to their unique style. Let's get right into it. Following from my previous post on which guitarists I recommend my students to check out when they want to get better at the rock genre, here is my list of top 10 influential guitarists for fusion. Obviously there are many more than 10 great fusion players out there, but these guys are the 10 players that influenced me the most as a studying fusion guitarist, and the players that I direct my students to when we are looking at learning and developing this style. I'm also going to recommend some great albums that you really shouldn't overlook too, so let's take a look at the list. Cutting edge fusion guitar player number 1, Frank Gambali. If there is one player that really defines this genre for me, it has to be Frank Gambali. He can effortlessly and convincingly play rock, blues and jazz tunes, but is so capable of moulding those genres into one unique style that it absolutely blew my head off when I first heard it. He's a player I didn't pay too much attention to when I was younger, as I was basically a rock player, but when I started taking lessons from my second guitar teacher around the age of 17, he introduced me to jazz harmony. What I wanted was to find someone who played with the rock tone and ferocity but with jazz sophistication. Frank was just the right guy. He can play over any changes, has mind-bending technique and is also a great composer. He's done so many albums with so many artists that it's really difficult to pick my favourites, but if I was really pushed, I would say that Passages is probably the album that showcases his talents the best. I would also check out all of his other solo work, anything he did with Chick Corea, Vital Information and GHS. Not only is Frank a first-class musician, but he is also a great teacher, which has also inspired me in my career. Cutting edge fusion guitar player number 2, Alan Holdsworth. My next guitar player for the fusion genre is a giant of the instrument. Alan Holdsworth was a staggering guitar player that has probably been unrivaled in terms of his harmonic approach or technical ability. His legato playing was better than any other player's by miles, and his command of harmonic major scales, whole tone scales, diminished scales, chromaticism, bebop scales and more is to this day beyond what any other guitar player is capable of doing. He is regularly cited by most other top guitarists as being the best. Even Yngwie Malmsteen concedes that Alan was untouchable, and that really does say something. The body of Alan's work is huge, so like Frank Gambali, it is really hard to say what you should listen to. A great place to start would be the Truth in Shredding album, part of the Mark Varney project and released on Legato Records back in 1990. The album features both Alan and Frank just blazing over complex jazz changes from beginning to end. It's a mind-blowing bit of guitar work. You can check that album out on YouTube. It's now unavailable for purchase, it's out of print. Also, if you want to listen to more of Alan's music, you can buy a collection of 12 of his albums called The Man That Changed Guitar Forever. Alan sadly passed away in 2017, and his passing is mourned by guitarists and musicians the world over. Cutting edge fusion guitarist number 3, Shawn Lane. When thinking about Shawn Lane, one word comes to mind: speed. Shawn Lane was a guitar player with otherworldly technical ability. He had it all: alternate, sweep picking, legato, tapping, hybrid picking, and not only could he do it all, he could do it faster than anybody else. The thing is though, Shawn managed to play at his warp speed tempo whilst remaining at a level of musicality that was as good as you're ever likely to hear. Shawn was a stupendous guitar player for many different genres, and was just as in control of his melodic playing as he was the speed stuff. Shawn sadly passed away in 2003 after a long battle with ill health. The go-to album to check out for Shawn is Powers of 10, which contains some of his strongest compositions. You can check out Sean's website for more info on his music, and definitely watch some of his instructional stuff on YouTube. It's awesome. Cutting Edge Fusion Guitar Player number 4, Brett Garsed. Remember when I was discussing Alan Holdsworth, I talked about MVP, the Mark Varney project. Truth in Shredding was the first release featuring Gambali and Holdsworth, while the second offering that MVP had showcased Frank Gambali, Sean Lane, and this guy, Brett Garsed. When I first heard Brett play, I just couldn't believe it. His legato playing is impossibly smooth, and his note choice is sublime. He has a particular approach to chromaticism that sounds like silk. He describes in his two tutorial videos, Rock Fusion and Rock Guitar Improvisation, exactly how he gets his sound. In order to hear all 4 guitar players so far mentioned, get hold of those 2 MVP releases. All 4 of these guys are on fire on these albums. One thing that I like about Brett's personal playing is that he still maintains a bit more of the rock sound, with just a hint of the jazzy sophistication that makes him that fusion player. I would suggest checking out his albums Big Sky and Dark Matter for his signature sound, and also make sure to check out Brett's website. Cutting Edge Fusion Guitar Player number 5, Greg Howe. Greg Howe started out in the late 80s on the Shrapnel Records label as a neoclassical type shredder, but in 1993 he released his album Introspection, which was an album with the rock tone but jazz style phrasing and harmonic sophistication. It's a very funk influenced rhythmic feel on Introspection. I would say that Introspection is the album that defines Greg, really. It's a super funky, full of soul, blues chops galore. Greg is particularly famous for his hammering from nowhere technique, and that is all over this album too. The hammering from nowhere technique is a legato approach that is all about changing strings without picking the first note. You literally hammer it, having played no previous note. He is also well known for his unique use of the tapping technique and a very special slide vibrato. Greg is a technical and harmonic master that's also had a successful playing career for pop superstars such as Michael Jackson and Enrique Iglesias. Check out Introspection and his other album Parallax, which these are 2 of my particular favourites for Greg's style. Cutting Edge Fusion Guitar Player number 6, Tony McAlpine. Tony McAlpine is probably not a guitar player you'd expect to find on a fusion list, as he is mostly associated with the late 80s neoclassical rock scene. However, Tony also did 4 albums with the jazz fusion band Cab, featuring Dennis Chambers on drums, Bunny Brunell on bass, and Brian Alger on keyboards. The Cab albums were a big influence on me, with Tony playing a very metal / shred style lead on them, over all of the jazz changes that are on the tunes. Tony is a fabulous musician who also cropped up in my younger days as the keyboard and rhythm guitar player for the Steve Vai Band. Make sure to check out Tony's website and check out all of the Cab albums to hear his fusion style guitar playing. Cutting Edge Fusion Guitar Player number 7, Sean Baxter. I mentioned that Tony McAlpine played over jazz changes with a particularly metal tone, and if you like that idea, then you really ought to check out this guy, Sean Baxter. Sean is an unbelievable virtuoso guitarist from the UK, and he championed a new form of fusion music in the early 90s called jazz metal. Sean was basically trying to fuse together the harmonic qualities of players like John Scofield and Pat Martino from the jazz world with the tone and ferocity of rock and metal players like Yngwie Malmsteen. Sean's 1993 album, simply titled Jazz Metal, shows that he really achieved this with stunning results. For me, Sean has not only been an influence with the music, but also in education. Sean set up the Guitar Institute, the first college of its kind in the UK, which later became ICMP, which is where I studied. My second guitar teacher had also had private lessons with Sean, and he showed me some of the lesson notes. They weren't simple, that is for sure. Sean still does a monthly column in Guitar Techniques magazine, so check that out for Sean's amazing insight, and make sure to listen to the Jazz Metal album. Cutting Edge Fusion Guitar Player number 8, Guthrie Govan. When people ask me who I think is the best guitar player alive today, I always say this guy's name. Guthrie Govan is a mind-blowing player who's raised the bar so high. In my opinion, he is my generation's Jimi Hendrix. He is just so far ahead of everyone else in terms of technique, versatility and musicality that I think he's probably the best guitar player that has ever lived. His album Erotic Cakes is an album that I firmly believe to be the most important guitar release in decades, and has helped influence the surge of technical guitar playing we now see on YouTube and Instagram. Cutting Edge Fusion Guitar Player number 9, Alex Hutchins. Alex Hutchins is one of the first guitar players I heard about from the now popular Jam Tracks Central website. Alex tunes in fourths, which allows him to play ultra fast and ultra smooth legato phrases and blistering arpeggios. He can slow it down though and play some beautiful melodic stuff too. He's one of the top guitar players to come out of this age of online guitar, and he's also now Steven Wilson's touring guitar player. Cutting Edge Fusion Guitar Player number 10, Tom Quayle. Tom Quayle is another player that has become popular since the advent of YouTube guitar playing. He was one of the first to capitalise on the global nature of exposure that YouTube can give you. He is particularly noted for his stunning legato playing of technique, and is also phenomenal at playing over jazz changes in a cool, funky, rocky fusion setting. He is one of the first online guitar players to get a signature deal with Ibanez. Ibanez have produced an AZ model which is called the TQM1, and this is Tom's specific signature model. Tom's achievements are paving the way for a very healthy future for guitar music. These 10 guitar players represent the most influential musicians for me for this fusion genre, and the ones that I most often recommend to my students to listen to. Feel free to discuss other fusion players in the comments, as there are hundreds more great players for this genre. If you're still hungry for more gifted players and you want to check out my recommendations for other people that you should listen to, check out my Cutting Edge Rock Guitarists video that is also on my channel. I've transcribed many different solos and parts by all of the guitarists that I have mentioned so far in these two videos. If you would like to get involved in the discussion, see licks, lessons, some of these transcriptions and more, you can support my channel by becoming a Cutting Edge Guitar community member. There are links in the description box below. Thank you ever so much for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you soon.